Hi, this is Vrinda, and today we'll talk about fake news. Fake news, not the way it comes to you in ones and twos on your WhatsApp groups and on your social feed, on your social media feed, but the character of fake news, the history of fake news, how fake news is built, how it's propagated, how it reaches you. So it's important to think about the structure of fake news. Often, what happens is that we call something as fake. We say that something is fake news, this is misinformation or disinformation, and then we stop engaging with it. But the problem with fake news is that when it comes to us, we don't think of it as fake. The fundamental feature of fake news is that it masquerades as fact. When we encounter it, we think this is real. And that is why it's so difficult to convince those who are around us and who fall prey to this monster called fake news. It's very difficult to convince them that what they're seeing is actually fake. So to talk about this, I'm going to take the help of this book by Nick Davies. It's an old book, this tattered copy, as you can see, has been read and has passed through many hands. It's called Flat Earth News. And through this book, we'll chart the way a big fake news story gripped the world at the beginning of the millennium and then again in 2003. And why am I talking about this today is because in the last month or so, because of the way fake news items were circulated and broadcast from mainstream media channels, a lot of discussion has taken place around it. We see that even international media outlets have finally begun to talk about the ways in which Indian television media has betrayed its audiences with blatantly fake news items. And it's also crucial to remember that it doesn't happen without intention. Many times fake news items are planted. Many times they come to us simply because a journalist is not doing their job of asking the right question. They will take a news item, they'll not take a news item actually, they'll take a press release or a statement that is delivered by somebody, and they will publish it as it is. Nick Davies actually calls it something. He has a specific term for it. He calls it journalism. So you churn out news simply on the basis of information that is given to you by official sources. So it's not journalism, it's journalism. And we are living in those times when what a minister says, what the government says, what a press release says is just reported as fact. There are people who are not doing their basic fundamental job of asking a question. That is what journalists are for. And it's not easy to ask questions. It's difficult. It takes courage at times. It takes a lot of effort. It requires reading. It requires sitting up late in the night and doing that job of thinking what the questions are and then asking them. So when journalists don't do that job, what happens? What happens is that you are bombarded with fake news. So, to come to the start of the millennium, this is 1993, and in a small newspaper in Canada, a news item appears on the 37th page of the Financial Post that talks about a possible problem that can affect the world's computers when the millennium strikes. So the idea is that on 31st December 1999, when the date will change at the midnight hour to 1st January 2000, the computers across the world will crash. This will, that these computers, their inbuilt systems will not be able to process the date change in the year. And this news item first appears as this conjecture by a scientist. His name is Peter Jager, and he was just warning. He's a technology consultant, and he's warning the world's governments and journalists to think about this possible problem. And then by 1995, in the next few years, by 1995, the news had spread out of North America into Europe and then Australia and Japan. By 97, these reports were being cited all across the globe, as the book says. By 1998, most media outlets were seriously talking about this problem. Governments were talking about this. There were Senate hearings that were being conducted in the US, in Canada. The British government actually forms a task force where they declare that we have to lead the world in our anti-bug preparation, because they are very sure that something is going to happen on the night the millennium strikes, and that they have to be prepared for that eventuality. But what happens is, I'll just come to it in a bit. And then, as the millennium is approaching, there's a lot of panic in the world. There are these journalists who are writing news stories, who are just taking opinions from anybody, from real estate dealers, from investors, from White House officials who know nothing about the problem. And the extent of the panic is immense. There is NATO countries begin to fear that Russian nuclear missiles will automatically get launched on the night of the new year. And then there are advisors who are saying that riots will break across the world because of the computer crash that is going to happen. There are books written about telling people how they can survive the apocalypse that will strike the world on the night of the new year, the new millennium actually. The complete Y2K home preparation guide. This book sells millions of copies. Now Y2K it stands for year, and 2K being 2000. So the millennium bug is called Y2K. And there are godmen who begin to talk about how a certain kind of religious faith will see the people through this big apocalypse that is going to fall upon the world. And countries actually allocate millions of dollars and millions of pounds, they allocate in their budgets to fight this bug. Task forces are formed, and then what happens on the day when the date actually changes? Nothing happens. A few computer systems across the world crash, but no riots happen. Journalists who had been having sleepless nights, and government officials who had been losing their appetite for weeks and months, are finally confronted with the fact that nothing happened. And then there was the idea that some people said that, okay, maybe it didn't happen because we prepared so much. But countries which had actually not invested in fighting the bug problem, like Italy and Russia, they also don't have any problems. Small businesses, micro and medium level businesses who could not have prepared for this, they also are quite okay. The date simply changes very normally to the next year. It begins to show 2000. And I'm not going to go into the technicalities of how that particular change in the digital clock happens, but it only goes to show that a fake news item really doesn't, it's not really harmless. It doesn't have it's not that it doesn't have any impact. This news item with which the millennium woke up was massive. It caused a loss of millions and billions of dollars across the world. Companies were conned, people were conned by experts claiming that they could tell them how to prepare for something that was not even the problem at all. So Nick Davies calls it the non-event. He calls it the non-event because nothing was there. Nothing was there, but so much panic. This hysteria was created around it. And he who does he hold responsible is important, because he says that the problem would not have reached such monumental proportions if journalists had done the simple task of asking the question, of asking why this problem will occur, who is saying that the problem will take place, and what the experts are saying. They were just churning out reports after reports, and nobody was really engaging with whether our systems were ready enough, because we already had digital systems in place which were calculating insurance claims far beyond the millennium. Say, if you bought an insurance policy in 1995, or and you had to calculate what the price or whatever the returns will be, or if you were investing money in 1995 and you had to calculate the returns, say 20 years from then, the clocks were making that leap, and so people were not engaging with these very simple and blatant facts that were available to them, but instead they were engaging in this mass hysteria that then culminates into nothing. Another case is actually far more serious. It is from 2003. So, when the US president at the time, George Bush, announces that the US is going to launch this war on terrorism and is going to invade Iraq, UK, Tony Blair is the prime minister at that time. He announces his support, and he agrees that he will send his troops along with the US troops, and to convince his MPs, to convince the government and the British people, he tells them that Iraq is in possession of weapons of mass destruction, and that to stop their usage, it's important that we also venture into this war with the US. Now, that war starts in 2003, ends in 2011. It costs many lives. Lakhs and lakhs of people die or are injured, are forced to leave their homes, are displaced, they lose their livelihoods. And then later, many years later, it's a report is commissioned in the UK to investigate the claims for which the UK went into war, to investigate the claims that Tony Blair was making at the time, to convince the British people of his decision to venture into the war. And this was called the Chilcot Report. The Chilcot Report comes out, and it comes to the conclusion that Tony Blair should not have gone into that war with the claims that he was making at the time, because there was nothing which conclusively proved that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. The report also says that that the UK had not till that time had not exhausted all the options for a peaceful resolution of the crisis. So they could have looked at other options, but they chose to go into the war without really assessing what the cost was going to be and whether they could have avoided it. In the end, after the Chilcot Report came, Tony Blair rejected the claims of the report, but he apologized to the British people for going into this war that caused such a massive loss, not just in Iraq, but also to the UK and its economy and its people. But obviously the costs were far greater in Iraq. So this is how fake news it's not just so simple. It's not just a WhatsApp message that comes to you. And in fact, even those messages are crafted, are designed somewhere. Amit Shah is on record on several occasions where he said that the IT cell units at district level, at state level, should form lakhs of WhatsApp groups, and every morning they should target their group members with news items that entertain them, that feed them something. And so fake news is never coming out of nowhere. It has a purpose, it has an intent, and the cost is always is firstly the audience. It is you who will pay the cost of that fake news. You are robbed of information, you're robbed of the truth. And many times then this fake news also has actual casualties in the real world. This casualty can be of information, of the rights of other people, and even of lives on occasion, as in the case of the Iraq war, or in our immediate social surroundings, when people get lynched, when people get attacked simply on the basis of fake news items that are circulated in the media, in WhatsApp groups, on our social media feeds. So this is one book that you can read. There are other books like this that I will perhaps put in the description of this. The names of those books I'll add in the description of this video. And till then, till next time, keep a keen eye out for such fake news items that come your way, and never stop asking the right questions. This is Vrinda.